Many things have been found underwater, sometimes by pure chance, by archaeologists and underwater explorers. Unusual or considered to be extremely important discoveries, these finds have lined the bottom of oceans, seas, or lakes for many, many years. Today, we will learn a little more about the sunken cities of ancient Egypt, the Apollo 11 engines found in the Atlantic, the thrown bottle into the sea 138 years ago, and much more. Make yourself comfortable because here are 10 things found at the bottom of the water, and as always, don't forget to take a look at our channel. Here we go. The City of Cairo was an English merchant ship that was sunk by the Germans in 1942, in the middle of World War II. Its carcass was found a few years ago by a Franco-British team off the coast of Namibia. The wreck was located at a depth of 5,150 meters, but the surprise was even greater when the treasure hidden inside was discovered. 100 tons of silver in the form of coins were in the ship, inside 2,182 chests. This money belonged to the British Treasury and its value was estimated at nearly $50 million. A first in the history of treasures fished out of the depths. Wait a minute. Did the Germans know that there was a treasure aboard the British ship they sank? On July 16, 1969, Neil Armstrong and 2 other astronauts were sent to the moon on the Apollo 11 mission. More than 40 years later, 2 of the 5 engines of the rocket used to propel the spacecraft had risen from the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. The recovery of these 2 elements, which lay at a depth of 4,267 meters, was carried out under the initiative of Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. The device, which included the engines, had fallen into the water at a speed of 8,000 kilometers per hour. So, you can imagine the power of the impact with the surface of the water at that speed. Fortunately, the heaviest parts that made up the rocket stage remained intact. After 3 weeks at sea, and thanks to sophisticated sonars, the Bezos Expeditions mission allowed us to bring out this valuable equipment. However, it still needed to be restored to correct the damage due to corrosion. Jeff Bezos can therefore congratulate himself on the success of his mission, which he financed and led, after announcing its launch following the discovery of the wreckage. But as he stated, the Apollo 11 engines are returning to NASA. We are often used to finding shipwrecks at the bottom of the water. But have you ever seen train wrecks? Here is a graveyard of trains on the open sea. These 2 locomotives, rare models of Planet Class 222T with clearly visible chimneys, date from the 1850s. They were discovered by chance in 1985 by Paul Hepler, a boat captain. The locomotives were located about 28 meters deep off the coast of New Jersey, USA. How did they get there? Mystery. Explorers link this to the fact that they were probably pushed into the Atlantic by the ship that was carrying them, to prevent it from capsizing because of some storm. Despite the rust, these steam locomotives remained in very good condition. A plan was even considered to bring them to the surface for study. If you are passionate about the history of ancient Egypt, here is a discovery that will certainly fascinate you. The sunken cities of Canape and Thonis Eratsleon respectively were discovered in 1999 and 2001. The underwater excavations were carried out since 1992 off the Egyptian coast, in the Bay of Aboukir, by the underwater archaeologist Franck Gaudio and his team. Finally, they allowed us to know a little more about the history of this civilization. According to the French archaeologist, the temple of Thonis Eratsleon had been destroyed by a natural cataclysm. It thus remained underwater. There are statues, steles, and objects that reveal some of the ceremonial rites practiced by the pharaohs at that time. It was even discovered that Canape was connected by a canal to the city of Thonis Heraklion and that Thonis and Heraklion, thought to be 2 separate cities, were in fact the Egyptian and Greek names for the same place. Diving enthusiasts, have you ever heard of Xicheng? It is a diving site located in China, 400 kilometers from Shanghai. The place is not only known for its beauty or for its magnificent Qiandao Lake which attracts divers from all over the world, but also for the city that exists under the waters of the lake. Built in 621 AD, this city, also called the City of the Lions, was an old city of the Han Dynasty. It served as a political and economic center, but also cultural. However, in 1959, the Chinese authorities decided to submerge this city for the needs of the construction of an artificial dam which then created Lake Qiandao. The City of the Lions thus had to be engulfed with other villages and towns, which required the displacement of 290,000 people who lived there. But, by sinking into the water, the city quickly sank into oblivion, and it was only in 2001 that it was talked about again. The site was converted into a place for water sports, and divers could then explore this real archaeological treasure underwater. The Xicheng site, whose surface area is equivalent to some 62 soccer stadiums, is one of the most spectacular explorable aquatic places in the world. Divers with a passion for history and archaeology can nowadays discover this magnificent city up close, which is well preserved underwater, at a depth of 26 to 40 meters. They can then marvel at its majestic gates and sculptures of lions and dragons, its arches, and paved roads. Before continuing, here is the question of the day. What movie by Luc Besson, released in 1988, tells the story of two rival free divers who become friends afterward? Option A, Abyss. Option B, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Option C, The Big Blue. If you're a cinephile and passionate about the seas and oceans, you'll easily find the answer. Choose the option you think is the right one and stay with us until the end of this video to see if you answered correctly. Florida is one of the largest states in the United States. Until recently, the history of the first people to live in this part of southeastern America, the Clovis culture, dates back about 13,000 years. But the discovery made by a team of archaeologists proved that the human presence in this region was much older than previously thought. Humans populated Florida 1,500 years earlier, which proves that the exploration of the world began much earlier than historians have taught us so far. Of course, this discovery would not have taken place without the archaeological excavations that have uncovered bones, animal remains, including a mammoth tusk, and fossilized stone tools some 14,550 years old. The objects in question were found at the Page-Ladson site in the Osceola River near the city of Tallahassee. Many diving operations had to be carried out to shed light on this discovery. John Krause, an amateur diver, made a surprising discovery on a beautiful day in November 2015. While diving in Halifax, Canada, he discovered a tank at the bottom of the harbor, 3 meters deep. The bottle was made of glass, with an intact cork with the following inscription: A. Keith and Son Brewery. This is the former name of the Alexander Keith Brewery in Halifax today. The bottle was even half filled and contained a sparkling liquid. According to an inscription found on the glass of the bottle, the beer had been produced in England at the end of the 19th century, before being exported to Canada. In fact, it had been imported between 1872 and 1890, suggesting that this beer would be a little more than 130 years old. A bottle of century-old beer then. We wonder, however, what it would taste like. Another bottle, this time of gin, was found by people walking on an Australian beach. The rectangular bottle, half buried in the sand, contained a message inside. It was dated 1886, making it the oldest bottle thrown into the sea found to date. The message, dated exactly June 12, 1886, and written in German, was intact and wrapped in string. It was the logbook of a German sailing ship from which the bottle had been thrown. In this message, it was found that the bottle had been thrown into the Indian Ocean, 950 kilometers from the Australian coast. The content of this message also evokes a German experiment, probably carried out between 1864 and 1933. This experiment consisted of throwing bottles from German ships to understand their trajectories and follow the sea currents. The author also asked the person who would find the bottle to send it back to the Naval Observatory in Hamburg or to the nearest German consulate, indicating where and when it was found. Of course, Tanya Illman, who had found the bottle, and her husband informed the Western Australia Museum. Research in the German archives confirmed this. A bottle had indeed been thrown into the Sea of the Pala on June 12, 1886. Interesting, isn't it? Why don't you do the same experience yourself by throwing a bottle into the sea? In your opinion, in how many years will it be found? It was a large fire that occurred aboard the USS Oriskany CV-34 during the Vietnam War, which is at the origin of what has become today this aircraft carrier that belonged to the US Navy. For this famous wreck, one of the most famous in the world is today an artificial reef. Sunk in 2006 off the coast of Florida in the Gulf of Mexico, the USS Oriskany became the first American warship to be transformed into an artificial reef. Nicknamed the Great Carrier Reef, in reference to the Great Barrier Reef, the aircraft carrier has even become a very popular dive site for experienced divers. The latter can descend up to 65 meters to visit it and discover the marine life around its wreck. If you are a fan of horror movies in general, and of Friday the 13th in particular, you must have heard about the statue of Jason Voorhees at the bottom of Crystal Lake in the United States. This life-size statue of this monstrous character has been covering the bottom of this lake since 2013. At the origin of this crazy idea, a certain Curtis Larr This man was so passionate about the saga that he decided to make a perfect replica of Jason Voorhees, with his hockey mask and machete, and place it at the bottom of the lake in Crosby, Minnesota. But it is only 5 years after having immersed the statue that it was discovered by a diver venturing there. The choice of the place is however not hazardous. The statue was planted where Megan Garris and Tommy Jarvis managed to trap Jason Voorhees at the bottom of Crystal Lake. This will certainly give goosebumps to those who dare to venture into this lake. You have just discovered 10 things found at the bottom of the water. Have you also found something at the bottom of the water? Tell us about it in the comments. Finally, the right answer to the question of the day is option C.